Yeah? The other side. Ooh. I don't know how you guys enjoying your day today. I find some surprising things popped up in the media today, some kinds of things there. Ooh, people are emotional, people are asking questions. It's a funny day, boy. Really funny day. But let me just thank you guys for joining us this evening here. Another Tuesday on the other side. I'm your host, Tanya Dickson. And as usual, I have with me my fellow co hosts. Yes, Mr. Sam Raphael, hotelier, and Mr. Kenny Green, businessman. Hmm? Every Tuesday from 6 to 7:30, we present views which are different from what you normally hear on a range of current event topics. I think in this evening is really going to be about current event topics, right, guys? I think that's um I think that's what we decided this evening, right? Everybody just nod in their head. Sam, you there? How are you?
Greetings, Tanya, and good evening to the listening audience. It's nice to join. I'm participating remote again,
Mhm.
but I'm there all in. So happy to be part of the conversation with you. And Kenny, of course, we expected to have a special guest, Mr. Joshua Francis, with us tonight. But unfortunately, today he notified us that due to something that he did not expect, he will not be able to participate this evening. He will do so in the near future. So we are going to then, you know, continue the program. But I think there are lots of current event topics, Tanya, as you suggested. And we've had a number of guests that have been in the studio. We've done some assessment of the midterms, of where the administration is, even looking at the opposition. We've had a number of guests. And then, as you mentioned, there are a number of things happening that maybe so we can have a quick discussion on those things and then engage the public, because oftentimes people complain that they don't have enough time to call in and express their views. So I think maybe we can, as we discuss,
Yeah,
give
we
them.
should we should open up the lines a lot more this evening. Yeah, but let me just remind you guys, we are live right now on the Q95 Facebook page, so you can join us over there. Come and see Kenny's shiny bald head and Sam's big smile. I'm actually growing my hair, so you guys can come on over and look at us. We look nice, fine. Can you give me a cut, I will? I wasn't
Prefer
supposed.
the prefer the hello.
Oh yeah, Kenny likes my hair low, low. Yeah, I'm going back there tomorrow, man. I should join you guys. What about bald? You all like bald women?
Ball is cool.
Bald is cool. Okay, Sam, you like bald women?
Uh, I,
That's a no.
I prefer the locks personally, but I don't have a stake in that one, so I have to go with what you come with. But
Okay. So welcome again, guys. So we're live on the Q95 Facebook page. You can join us there. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give you guys the numbers now so that you can keep it in mind. We're gonna discuss, and should we just take calls in between and full up? Because I don't know.
couldn't we start a discussion, Tanya, if you don't mind? Maybe we can get going on something for the
We-
first side
Of,
20 minutes,
of course we will. But I'm just saying,
then
will we be
and then
waiting
we
till
can let the
7?
folks know when they can call.
Okay, so I guess you will let me know when they can call. So what's the topic on you guys' mind? The first one, Kenny.
Sam, no, Sam. Let Sam go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sam, shoot.
You want me to go ahead? Okay, well, again, a number of things are happening around. You suggested, Tanya. There was this situation with Dr. Thompson Fontaine that I think has been resolved as of
Mm-hmm.
today. We heard about that, but I think that's been played out. He came in to Dominica on a bench with an outstanding bench warrant for
Right.
a murder that occurred some time ago. And as you know, the law, if you have an outstanding bench warrant, once you arrive, the government gets the advance warning on the APIS, then you will
Mm-hmm.
be arrested. And that happened. He came in on a weekend, and there's a little back and forth that happened there. There was a temporary bail situation, and when it got time to convert that again, there was something didn't work out as it should. Again, I don't want to pass any judgment, so that's why I'm leaving that open. and his travel was revoked. His right to travel. In any event, it got resolved today, and I think he may be on his way out as we speak, or as early as today or tomorrow. I think he's
Okay.
reappear again, and he's committed to coming back to reappear. I think in August. I think the moral of that story is you cannot show contempt for the court, no matter how small or how big the issue is. Any jurisdiction that you have a warrant, or that you have a notice to appear in court on. If you don't, you're going to get issued with a warrant, and you're going to get into problems. So I don't want to go into the back and forth, in the political thing with this. I think the lesson is that we must have respect for the courts, and it usually works better for us when we do. So I think
I'm
that's
glad. I'm
my.
glad you brought it up because I think I agree totally with what you're saying. I felt like that what you explained there got very lost initially when this whole thing happened.
Mhm.
People were just online like, oh my God, how could they treat a patriot like that? And but I kept saying to myself, there was a bench warrant. I
Right.
mean, for anyone, if there's a bench warrant, then you should be, treated appropriately, you know?
Mhm.
And so I felt like people got really carried away with themselves, speaking about how could they do that to him. But I think and I've been very honest with you, Sam, for the first time, I feel like, the police was just doing their job. They
That's
were,
all.
they were doing their job. And
If
so
this
we need to take a chill pill. They were doing their job.
If it happened in China, you'd have the same thing in the US, in Washington, D.C. Anywhere, you cannot show contempt for the court. If you have a summons to appear in court, you must appear. We can talk about, and some of the issues that came up were about the holding cell, the conditions there, and so on. And maybe these are things to talk about because we've heard other complaints about the state of the holding cell. Maybe there needs to be, some upgrade there.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
on. But at the end of the day, I think it's been resolved. I'm happy. I happen to know Dr. Fontaine personally, and I'm glad that his matter has been resolved and that he can continue and that we can deal with more pressing matters affecting the lives of everyday people.
Yeah. I'm not so in agreement with the charges, but definitely how the police did their job. And I think that
You
is something we have to recognize.
people need to understand sometimes the contempt or the cover up, this is not a cover up, but where there's a cover up or contempt of court, sometimes that supersedes the original issue. And
Hmm.
so I think it is important, as little as I suggested that the issue is, or as big as it is, we have to respect the courts because the courts are there for all of us. And I think there's been a little court bashing going on, and I think that this is quite unfortunate because we should have at least some things we hold sacred. And the police have to do their jobs. When they don't do their jobs, we can get on the case. But when they're trying to enforce laws for all of us, we may not agree with it, but they're just out, putting their lives at risk, doing their jobs. The court officers, they may not always rule in my favor or in your favor, Tanya, or in Kenny's favor, but
Yeah.
at least that's why they're here. And so we need to respect our institutions and not
You
seek to
know,
break them down with politics.
yes, agreed. You know what came to mind? I just said to myself, I think Thompson Fountain is a very intelligent man. I just, I'm not Dominican, but I love to go and marco people business. I would just go and read up on you and what you're doing with your life and, your education and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering, did he not know that this would happen to him? It just seems so weird. Like you just touch down any day and think that that would not happen.
Well, he said he came back to clear that matter up, so he must have known that there was an outstanding warrant for his arrest. And how he handled it, I don't know. But I think at the end of the day, it's been resolved, and so there's no need for us to relitigate that at this point. And I think there are other topics too that we need to talk about. So, Kenny, that's my first one. What do
Sam
you
cut
have
me off on
on your
that one.
mind?
that was a straight like Tanya, hush your mouth. Of course,
Tanya, I
coming.
would never.
I'll be happy to take that call because I know it's about what we're talking about. Can you want to go first before I I see it
No,
was blinking.
no. I'm pretty chill.
You're pretty chill.
I'm listening to you guys tete a tete. Yeah,
You hit
it's
me a
pretty cool.
nice smile just now, but and then I see you bite your lips. That means you don't want to say anything.
What?
No, you go
No.
okay.
I'm chill.
Okay. All right. So
Mhm.
I guess we'll be look, the call is
What
coming back.
what
Can we take the call, Sam?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
I
let's
don't want
take
to
the
just
call.
get marked off track, but go ahead,
No, we
please.
won't. We won't. I'll monitor. Call you live on the other side.
Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
A few years ago, there is a government institution who expects boldly and loudly no law, no constitution will prevent me. Do you remember who the me is or who the me was? From doing what I have to do. No law, no constitution. And there was no comment from any people like Sam Rafayan and Kennedy and many other Dominicans like this. That is a very, very serious outburst there, showing disregard for the laws of Dominica, not even the Constitution. Do you all remember or have an idea who said that? Who made that outburst? I'm listening to you on for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Kenny, if I may, again, we keep hearing this. When did the Prime Minister made that statement in 2005, I think, or something like that? And it's in reference to what he felt was unfair treatment with his nomination. But some people seem to take things and twist it out of context and run with it for decades. And I don't know, is the Prime Minister suggesting that no law should exist? This is ridiculous. And I think we need to mature ourselves with our conversations and move on to more substantive things in this. So that's my
Um,
feedback. I'm not surprised that this thing can come up, Tanya, but this is sort of unfortunately where some people are stuck.
Sam, the context is 2009, and
Oh,
the
not
context
2005.
the context of this statement, I remember it, was the statement, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think I'm a bit more accurate than what the caller said, is no law, not even the Constitution, can prevent me, Roosevelt Skerrit, from being nominated. And he was correct. He made it sound like an agitated statement, but it was it was it was based on fact. Was that there's nothing in the process that was underway that could stop him from being nominated. But if you soundbite it and you say no law, no constitution can stop me, Roosevelt Skerrit, and you full stop it there, then what do you have? You have a pretty contentious
I still
statement.
lost. I still
You
don't get
know,
it.
it was leading up to nomination. They were challenging the authenticity of his status as prime minister on the basis that they said that he was a citizen of another country. And the case was being filed. Sam is very well aware of that situation. If you want, Sam, you can divulge why you're very aware if you want to really come to the general public with something that is of interest. But the point is that he said at the time, the prime minister said at the time, that no law, not even the Constitution, can prevent me, Roosevelt Skerrit, from being nominated. And he was correct.
Well, I want you to explain that part. He was correct. What do you mean he was
He
correct?
was correct in that there is nothing in the process that was going on that could stop him from being
What do you
nominated.
mean in the process?
So they were looking to file a court case in order to invalidate him because he held or he was supposedly holding, that was the allegation, that he was holding the citizenship of another country. And in the lead up to that, it was in the lead up to the nomination of process.
I think you're being really, I don't know.
What, obtuse?
Yes.
No, it's not
Because-
obtuse. It's
no,
the statement.
not
The
obtuse. I don't
statement
know.
at the time.
Because let's keep it real.
Mhm.
Let us take somebody's words. Stop
Yes.
trying to dig deep to figure out what they say. They said what they said. Okay? They said there'll be no law. There's no law or no constitution. So anyone listening, how does that come across? And I think that is the main part. Yes, I agree. It probably have another meaning in
It
that.
is no. It's
whatever
not
they're
even
trying
it's
to
not.
do.
It's not. You don't have to explain it. There's no meaning to it. There was no grounds
Then
from
say that.
stopping him.
Then say there are no grounds.
Well, he was in the, this is in the middle of the political climate, you know.
I agree, and we
I'm
get
not,
really
I don't
and
even
say
have to put
things.
context to it. That
Tan-
is
Tan-
this, that is reality.
Yes,
Tanya
Sam.
suggested it was an inarticulate comment,
I
which is
like
why
that word.
2005 or 9, and the sound bite didn't, he didn't have a chance to clarify what he meant at the time.
Yes, yes.
But you see, so it was an inner day. But I think they put a meaning to that, that lawlessness, it can is fine,
But that's
and
what it sounds like, Sam.
it doesn't. Well, that's what we're trying to clarify. So again, you can make a statement, and I make statements every day that people can take out of context, which is what they did here. But something that happened, as Kenny said, in 2009, where his right to seek the office was being challenged, and he's suggesting that he met the statutory requirements as a citizen, as someone with the age, as so on and so forth. So there's nothing in the law, the Constitution, that will prevent him from that can prevent him from seeking the office, which was his point was. But again, it was taken out of context. But this is something, unfortunately, every time something comes up in this country, it just shows a lack of maturity, because we all in the public domain make inarticulate statements or statements that can be twisted. But a lot of people are just, hung up on that. So,
But Sam, you were in the race at the time, weren't you?
yes.
Okay.
Let's
And
not reiterate that. I lost my big pen.
okay. So no, but there's a point behind that, but we'll leave that for another time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Let's take one more call coming in, and then let's switch the topic. I think we talk enough about we started off with Thompson Fountain. Yes. Let's take this one. Caller, you're live on the other side.
Hi, good evening to you, Tanya.
Hi, good
to
evening.
you.
good evening.
Yeah, Sam, you need to stop trying to defend scary disease nonsense. But let me take it a little further. With regards to Dr. Thompson Fountain, right? Dr. Thompson Fountain was arrested at Melvin with, like 15 men from the SSU, whatever. Now, there was a fugitive that was being sought by the Dominica Police for the Criminal Investigation Department. He was in the United States. He decided to come and clear his name. You listening to me, Tanya, right?
Yes, we're listening, caller.
He came in. He came into Dominica. The Criminal Investigation Department in Dominica knew he was coming, like Thompson Fountain. You didn't have all these men in military combat fatigue waiting for him at Melville for the simple reason he is one of scary crony. Tanya, if I have to explain all that to you, there was
it's probably not the time to do that now. It would be too long.
Can you hear me, Tanya?
Yes, I'm hearing you, caller.
Huh?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, so like I said, there was a fugitive. This fugitive, it is alleged that he burned down someone. He paid to burn down someone's house in Dominica to kill him. They attempted to kill this man. He ran away. Then when a couple years passed, he decided to make his comeback to Dominica. He was not treated like how Dr. Thompson Fountain was treated. Dr. Thompson Fountain did not do nothing to get that treatment. The man was
you see, my problem, caller, is what is the treatment you're speaking about? What was the difference in the treatment between Dr. Thompson Fountain and this criminal that you're speaking about? How were they treated differently? How were they treated differently, caller?
I did not quite understand.
Stop listening to your radio and listen to me on the phone. How were they both treated differently? I think that's something that we should think about. Thank you for calling. Yeah, I understand he's trying to make a comparison, but I felt like if you want to make that comparison, then break it down for me. How was Dr. Thompson treated and how was that person treated? Show me the differences. I don't know if you know of the case. Do you know of that case, Kenny?
Which one?
The person who burned down somewhere and then came back to Dominica. I don't know of that case.
I'm not too sure what he's talking about, but
Okay.
Anyway, maybe we can wrap up on Dr. Thompson Fontaine. Fast forward to another issue, but still with Dr. Fontaine. There was a session of opposition persons, I would call it, and I'm trying to be accurate, under an organization in Jam last night, and I listened to it online, at least a portion of it, where the different potential opposition leaders, I guess, gave their take. I don't know, Tanya or Kenny, if you guys were even aware that this was happening, and I listened to it because Dr. Fontaine, when he came back and when all of this happened, the opposition people rallied around him, and he was hailed as possibly, the next great thing for the opposition. And there's been a lot of talk on social media, and I'm sure all of you have seen that, where
Mm-hmm.
people were hailing him as the person that should be actually the leader of the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
There's an issue that's been going around with the current leader of the opposition, the direction, the success that they've been having, and the need for a change of an opposition leader. And indeed, Dr. Fontaine was hailed as someone that was a better option. But I did listen to him last night, and my take on it was it was just one event, and we shouldn't judge people by one event, but I was underwhelmed, and the feedback that I got from the persons that were listening with me were that they were very underwhelmed. It was the same broken message, the same very negative message. It's like changing the head of the messenger, but the message and the messaging remain just the same broken record that we hear from the opposition, with the same litany of nothing good is happening in this country. And I just thought that was just so unfortunate, because I was kind of hoping that, we would have, an emergence of a more vibrant opposition that could really play a more constructive role in the development of the country. But I didn't see that coming out of the meeting last night. So that's just my take on that. It was a little disappointing, to say the least. He had been away from Dominica for a long time, and maybe he's been out of touch with the issues that affect people on a daily basis. But he made some suggestions. One of the statements that he made was that Dominica is the only country that is losing population and not at war. That the only time countries lose population is when they're at war. I mean, he literally said that, and I was like, wow. A simple Google search, someone that has a PhD, they would really speak to things where they would come with their sources of information. Where did you get that source from? And he made a number of statements that I found. So I found, in his, in terms of his assessment as a potential leader, I was sort of disappointed in that.
Kenny?
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear the show. I wasn't exposed to the show. I My feeling on the whole government versus opposition dynamic is the reason we're here. Well, the reason I'm here is because Dominica has gotten to this kind of strange level where in the past governments and opposition existed, but there was dialogue between them at some level. Now there isn't really any dialogue, and that's worrying. It's one thing to have the grandstanding in parliament and even on the radio stations, but when you don't actually have real dialogue of any level, and no, I mean, when I mean no, I mean zero bipartisanship, there is like little or no agreement on any issue, then it becomes of concern. And so even if we come on here and we get some abuse, at least being able to be in the firing line and to talk a differing view, it's important for people to be able to talk to each other. And my issue only with these forums is that they're not engaging people who have a differing viewpoint. I'm not saying that they're doing so deliberately. Don't get me wrong. They're just, everybody's still in their little silos. And you have to be able to engage people, even to let people tell you, you know what, I don't believe what you're saying, or I don't like what you're saying. But when you're just speaking to a pliant audience, and that goes for all sides of the political equation, it's a dangerous thing, because it's like it's a kind of incestuous relationship with opinions and intelligence. So that's how I see it. But I didn't hear the show. I can't critique or say anything bad about anybody or say anything, and neither would I anyway.
I think I took in a little bit of it as well, and yeah, like Sam said, nothing really new, and that's basically my comment on that. I don't even need to elaborate anymore. Nothing really new. I don't know. I think as a youth, I still consider myself youth, even though I have a little age. Okay. I this is my problem, you know. I just feel like something refreshing and something new. New people, new persons are needed. And that's that. That's how I feel. Um, New strategy probably on that side as well is needed. Like Sam said, same broken message, a different head. But I
Tanya,
share the same sentiments with Sam. It's just same old, same. I can't even say the word. Same poop on a different day. That's how I have to keep it real.
But to be fair, okay, just to be fair,
Uh huh.
part of the issue of not having, you see, an opposition is really supposed to be a government in waiting.
Uh huh.
Okay, so you're supposed to be able to close your eyes and say, well, you know, if things go bad, then these guys could be the ones running the country.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another flip side to that, which is that the opposition is supposed to be able to strengthen the government, if only because the arguments they will make will
mm,
let people think when they're combating each other. The problem is there doesn't seem to be any kind of rapport between the government and the opposition. It isn't a uniquely Dominican problem. It
No,
is
it's not.
it's a Caribbean problem. Even in Trinidad, you have it pretty bad.
Yeah.
But we're here. That's our existence, so we have to deal with it. And it's just, you know, it's unfortunate because the only way the Labour Party can get better is if the opposition is stronger.
Right.
And so therefore all sides suffer when the political climate is so not just polarized but is dumbed down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you know, for the callers who are saying, oh my God, you know, you're just criticizing the opposition. No, I'm saying that the political culture, and it's
It
something
doesn't
of
sound like you're criticizing the
it's
opposition. You're
it's
speaking about the
it is,
political.
if you look at our country in general,
Yes.
um people, and it's gone beyond politics now.
Mm-hmm.
People, there's a kind of cliquishness about people. I mean, if you want to really find out what Dominicans think about you, disagree with them substantially on something. I mean,
Which is sad, huh?
well, it's not, it's human behavior, but still in a small country it's destructive, because what happens is that people eliminate voices that don't agree with them. And also, the fact is that there are many people who may in the same political side with you, in the church with you, who you have nothing else in common with other than the fact that you worship in the same church or you are in the same political party. And there's a reason for that. Human minds are not meant to be synchronized.
Let's stick up in there for now, guys, and
Kenny,
take a quick break. Can we do that? Oh, you want to say something, Sam?
yeah, I wanted to follow up on what Kenny was saying, and I think we should dig a little deeper in this, Kenny, because it really does us all a disservice. I want to equate that to like having a business. Like you, Kenny, have a business, I have a business. And we strive to do our best in our business. But sometimes we have situations where maybe we're not up to scratch that day, or employees that may be doing things that we're not seeing. And the only way that we can improve our business is for our customers, the people that we serve, to critique us
Yeah.
and to give us constructive criticism and to say, you know, the food wasn't warm when I get it, or the room was should have been this, or this should have been better. And the thing is how we deal with that. We can get very offended when people say that, and some people do. Some business people, you tell them something and they take offense to it. Whereas I think a smart business person would take that as advice from a customer so that they can improve their business and get more business down the road. And I think this is where the opposition thing comes in. And if there is no opposition that kind of point out some of the things, we end up seeing garbage piling up on the roadside. And okay, you support the government, so you don't complain about it. The opposition is distracted, they don't complain about that. And all of a sudden, the issues that affect us on a daily basis, we're not dealing with them and not really improving, because that whole system between the opposition and the government is broken. In this case, the citizenry has have to come forward and now have to really challenge those people that are given the authority. And
But
you know,
why do you think the citizenry is not coming forward?
I think we're stuck. Part of it is our cultural, that if we complain, we think that it's something negative or bad,
You really
right?
think so?
I really think so, Tanya. People don't take
Hmm.
criticism well in our society. If you tell a minister, da, 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 they may feel that, you know, you are, you know, it's something maybe negative towards them. And
Or do you
so,
think that people are also being victimized for complaining, for coming forward
but
and
I don't
saying
know.
things?
I can just say it's not helpful that we don't have a situation where we are being sharpened, where we are being guided to do better every day because people provide constructive criticism. The rest, you guys, that can unfold however, but I would like to see, I think it would benefit us all if we focused on improving things through constructive criticism, in what we do in government and even in the private sector in the service business.
Okay, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I see the lines are blinking. I'll try to take some calls. Take the numbers now, people: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, and for overseas, 305-432-9624. We are right now live on the Q95 Facebook page, so you can join us over there. I'm going to read some comments as well. We'll be right back right after this.
Right here, right now, I put the offer out. I don't wanna chase you down. I know you see it. You run with me, and I can cut you free out of the treachery and walls you keep in. So trade that typical for something colorful. And if it's crazy, live a little crazy. You can play it sensible, a king of conventional, or you can risk it all and see. Don't you wanna get away from the same? Oh, part you gotta play, cause I got what you need, so come with me and take the ride. It'll take you to the other side, cause you can do like you do, or you can do like me. Stay in the cage, or you finally take the key. Oh, damn, suddenly you're free to fly. It'll take you to the other side. Okay, my friend, you wanna cut me in, but I hate to tell you, but it just won't happen. So thanks, but no, I think I'm good to go, cause I quite enjoy the life you say I'm trapped in. Now I admire you, and that'll show you do. You're onto something, really it's something. I live among the swells, and we don't pick up peanut shells. I'll have to leave that up to you. Don't you know that I'm okay with
Welcome back, guys, to the other side. I'm your host, Tanya Dickson. Of course, I'm accompanied by my co hosts, Sam Raphael and Mr. Kenny Green. We're just going with the flow here this evening, guys, talking about current event topics in our country. We just touched on um, Mr. Fontaine, him being arrested and all of that jazz. I'm so glad that's over with because I was very not impressed by all of the talk. I think it's just becoming tiring, all of this talk. Very, very tiring. And we've just also been speaking about I think that went into the talk about um what our PM said in 2009 when that talk about him having French citizenship and stuff like that. I'm sorry guys if I'm a bit off. It's just that I feel like it's not my energy. It's just like I don't know. I'm just tired of the back and forth and there's no civil discourse in this place. That's what it is, and it's becoming very tiring. I find I don't know if anybody is sharing those same sentiments with me, but I don't know. I just wish we could come to a point where we could say right is right and wrong is wrong, and we could recognize that we need to do this so that everybody can go up and grow. But I don't know. It's just every day is a fight. I just that's is this how it's going to be for the rest of my life? That's what I ask myself sometimes. Every day, every earthly day.
Every situation has its different challenges, Um,
It's just a lot. I have some comments here on the live. Would you like to hear them? People have
it's
a
up
lot
to
to
you.
say,
Is there any value in them? That's the main thing. No, I'm just telling you. If there's value in them, say them. But if they're just going to rehash,
I'll see if I find something with value. They said here, we do not remember if DBS was not accessible to all candidates before 2000, was it? There was also one debate among political leaders around that time, structured debates Dominicans grew up on. I think here they're speaking about not having structured debates, not having more, what do you call that? Press conference and that sort of a thing. Because I see before that as well, someone says the good thing about the opposition, they have press conference and the Labour Party is yet to have none. So I don't expect anything good to come from you guys' mouth. Maybe they're speaking about the issue with Thompson Fountain or something. I don't know. There you guys go.
I'd like to repeat something I said before.
Mm.
You all like maths, right? Okay, so let's do maths again. And the anger that people evoke the state is understandable at times, but the math is that in 1995, UWP won with around 34% of the vote.
Mhm.
Okay, in three parties, that's normal. There's nothing unusual about that. But in essence, they were a minority party. What does that mean? It means that going forward, when UWP lost in 2000, they lost to a coalition. And because of that, there's a lesson to be formed around that. Because at the end of the day, to be able to foster any kind of change, you have to be able to reach across the political aisles, because you're always dealing with math that says you're behind. And so getting people to vote for you or to not vote against you means you have to not antagonize them. So when you call people names, when you're aggressive, when you're, basically being very, very cantankerous, it doesn't help to be able to have a discussion. And that's on anything. You can meet anyone on any topic and they'll engage with you if you come in a respectful, normal manner.
Mhm.
You can disagree, you can walk away from each other and say, you know what, I don't agree with that person, but it was cool.
Yeah.
But the idea that you get is that people are so hostile that after a while you don't even want to listen to them. And that's all that we want to be able to do, is to foster discussion, but in a respectful manner, to start and to be able to understand that people have a point of view that can be listened to.
Let's take this last one. You all have conveniently moved away from police issues because you cannot face these issues. Shaking my head. My goodness. Fact is that no matter the personalities or approach, this government has destroyed the democratic institutions and is crushing anyone who disagrees with them. And you guys are wearing blinkers for selfish reasons. Do you all deny that people are afraid to speak out, stand up, criticize, or even walk now for fear of victimization? Enough of this nonsense. Sickening. That comment brings me. You heard the person mention walk, and that's a big topic. I think, guys, I don't. I wish somebody who understands the law and the Public Order Act and the Constitution would call and explain to me, because I'm not the type to just react and be aggressive about what, the police doing their job, the commissioner doing his job, or whoever's doing their job. But I always want to find out, are they doing the right thing? And to me, it's just very strange to hear that people are getting summons and having to go to court for the walk. The walk on a Wednesday for peace, prosperity, and justice. People were summoned and they have to go to court. And I don't understand why. I really don't understand why. I would love somebody to explain that to me. It makes me feel, and I can be wrong, I'm going to be very honest, that we don't have the ability to express ourselves. It's just a walk.
Well, you said it right. You said maybe someone needs to come in and explain how the Public Order
The
Act works. Yeah.
And I want to know if the Constitution trumps the Public Order Act. That's what I want to know. So I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer, because hey, I just want somebody who understands, comprehends the law.
Tanya, I'm sorry, but
To explain that to me. But that is a big deal right now. Sam, you heard about that, right?
yeah, but Tanya, I think we need to step back a little, because someone calling and explaining, you're gonna get two lawyers and they're gonna argue different things with this. But clearly the law requires that you get a permit to demonstrate, to conduct activities. And if that's what you're going to do, if you're going to have a political demonstration, which is what this is, I'm not suggesting that it shouldn't happen. People should have a right to express themselves. Then, my God, get a permit and not make that an issue. Did someone apply for a permit and they were denied? No. So this is where I think, Tanya, we have to step back a little and say honestly, and I heard this from the NJAM presentation. This part I thought was interesting, is that we almost have two Dominicas. And in many countries, you have two of those countries. You have one side with one narrative and a reality, and another side with a completely different narrative and a reality. And if you're not from the place, you would think it's two different places people talk about. Because on the one hand, people have this very negative, very disparaging. Everything is wrong. The police are just firebombing and like killing people. You hardly imagine that people still live on the island because they make it sound like it's such a horrible, horrible situation. And on the other hand, people are like saying, what is going on? From the time I land in the airport, I see improvements, I see all of this thing happening. So it's almost like we have two completely different narratives, and people are locked into their narrative. And I think the saddest part is people expect you to see things the way they do. And this is something that I think is really strange. And this happens in religion. People kill in the name of their religion because they hold fast to it in such a strong way. They get very militant and they see the world through that, and any other religion is wrong or any other political perspective is wrong. And I think that this is very dangerous. And in Dominica, this has become commonplace where you have two sides that have a completely different view of reality, and we're kind of stuck in that. As you say, we're not talking to each other. It's always complaining, or you must know, like the guy said, Sam Raphael, you know better. I know better what? My reality from what I think the guy is kind of, out there. He obviously thinks my reality is distorted, and that's how it is. I mean, I give him, as we do in the program, an opportunity to hear his perspective without trying to attach it to what I believe. But I think there is that two complete narratives that we have. Kenny, I don't know your thoughts on that, but it's just
I want to say
I don't
something,
know
Sam.
how to get
Something you
beyond
said
that.
stood out to me, Sam. You said that it's like you know, oh God, and they miss me talk so much as basically the idea of people want you to accept their side, their thought, their perception of something. And I feel like you're doing that with me right now. Because I asked earlier that I would like someone to explain to me this Public Order Act and where these charges or where this summons is coming from so I can understand it. And then you said, well, we should just take it back, because you
Which,
think that
but,
people should just request a permission.
You know
no,
what? You know what?
but
I agree. Both of you all have your own point. But what I was saying, without interrupting you,
Yes.
is let's get someone in here. Might
Yes,
be
I
like
want
the
to understand
commissioner
it.
of police might be a good
And
person to
I'm
come
I'm
on.
tired of hearing,
Yeah.
from people telling, "Oh, that's wrong." And yes, we're gonna get someone to come in here, but we want someone to read the law and let us know our rights.
There's
I
a
think a
couple of
lot of
people trying to
times we
call.
don't know our rights. We don't know what's happening. Let's take this one. You're live on the other side.
Yes, good night. Good night,
Good
Tanya.
good
Good night.
night.
Good night.
I'd like to talk cordially and nicely on the other side because we're talking about discussion and having cordial discussion without insulting and so on. Tanya, I just want to raise to your attention some facts. The leader of the opposition budget a response to the Prime Minister. You had an unprecedented event happening in the House of Assembly, I think, sometime last year, where they brought in armed police in the precinct of the House of Assembly to actually escort the leader of the opposition to prevent him from delivering his budget response, one of the most important responses of the leader of the opposition in Parliament to the Prime Minister's budget address. He was escorted, and Tanya, you know his crime? His crime was that he was not in the House at the time when the Prime Minister was delivering the budget address. So they had a junior minister move a motion to ban him, prevent him from presenting this address, Tanya. And incidentally, Tanya, we need to make this point here, that the leader of the opposition had the opportunity so far to have responded to at least 6 or so budget presentations from the Prime Minister. And not one time has the Prime Minister paid the courtesy, give the leader of the opposition, the office of the leader of the opposition, the respect by sitting there and listening to the address.
The big question is now, what is the leader of the opposition doing about that? But thank you, caller.
No, you see that, so that I'm just trying to talk about how we discussing, and in Parliament too, where we're supposed to have cordial debate, Tanya,
Right.
the record is that, and some can verify that that the opposition members are always hustled. They are always prevented from making their points and prevented from taking part in the debate. That is a fact.
Okay.
While the speaker gives the government officials free rein to run roughshod to insult. Kenny's concerned about insulting. Can you talk to your friend Tanya Stefan? That is the specialist on
Okay,
calling
caller.
to
All right.
Cordial discussion, Tanya.
Okay.
Cordial discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thank you.
But I mean, I'm not trying to pick sides with that one. I just always want to know if somebody doing you wrong, what are you doing to correct the situation? That's just my what are you doing? You know it's wrong. Or it's not the right way. What are you doing to correct the situation? That's always my question. Let's take this one. Caller, you live on the other side.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Tanya, you better be careful because you are sin between two devils. I want to ask him a question.
Sure.
Was it right for Roosevelt Kerry to send our men in the House of Assembly to shoot the UWPI, to shoot Mr. Linton them, when they said, the policeman said, if they only wink, they're shooting them? Was it right?
Okay.
Sam and Raphael, it is better you just shut the fuck.
You see, that's the problem. I don't like sitting on a show where people are going to call and curse. That's not going to happen on my show, people. So let's not think about it. Don't dial if you feel so hot and heavy and so emotional. Take a cool out, drink some water, take a lap around the house, do something. Do not call and curse on this program. We will have problems. Okay? Let's take another call. We can't even answer a question because we're not answering questions when you come in and cursing. Caller, you live.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm just trying to make a contribution to this program.
Mm-hmm.
I want to refer to one thing that Kenny said. The maps. And it is basically what is happening in this country. One side does not want to accept the maps. When UWP won the election, they won with 33% of the votes. They won 11 seats. In 5 of those 11 seats, the two votes opposed were more than the votes that they got. So in 5 constituencies, they lost on a minority, and in 6, they won outright. So it means, therefore, the UWP formed a minority government with 33% of the votes. And Mr. James used to remind very much in Parliament that the 33% of the votes will control the 67%. He always used to remind people. So what happened in this situation? Once the situation is reversed, where you have a two-party going on, the situation UWP has never gained more than 43% of the total votes cast.
Caller, can you wrap it up? Can you wrap it up, please, caller?
And I just want to mention that. So these people have to understand they are losing the election because they do not do any groundwork, they do not do any mathematical work to see that they are losing fairly and squarely, and they believe they can continue to win on a minority.
Mm-hmm.
But the vast majority of Dominicans keep voting them out.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm glad he brought that up, losing fairly and squarely, because somebody wanted to talk to you all about that.
The point that I was making earlier is more in reference to the fact that you have to be able to reach across the aisles when you have the mathematical equation against you. It's, in other countries, they look at the demographies. So, for example, in the United States, they talk about the fact that the Republicans have a dying equation because their vote is mainly white, and the fact that the Hispanic vote is rising and is voting primarily Democratic and is more young, that the demographics don't work for them. Of course, that can change, in terms of the political system, or the political leanings can change. But in Dominica, we have the issue right now in that this antagonism that you're hearing right now, it does not encourage anybody who's not for you to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. And if you, it's one thing, and I appreciate that Brian called and he was civil and the way he spoke, he made a couple good points. The point is that we have to be able to dialogue with each other, even when you're disagreeing with each other, because there are people listening. And some of those people are undecided people, some people not voting, some people are first time voters, and
Mm-hmm.
other people are voters, they're ardent voters of the Labour Party, and they're listening. So, just present yourself properly in a way that, can travel.
You were speaking about crossing the lines. Do you think that's the only way? Because I think some people think that electoral process can be helpful as well when it comes to trying to establish, as governance.
In terms of what? I don't
Well,
understand.
people think there should be some electoral reform. Like someone says, Green, help fix the electoral process. Campaign finance regulations, for example. No one party should have the advantage over the other in that regard.
Uh, well, there's an electoral reform process. I sincerely believe that there'll be electoral reform. There has to be electoral reform. Some can tell you what we've done
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to that. He's laughing.
Okay, let
But
me hear.
the point is, um, if you have electoral reform today,
Mm-hmm.
it does not substantially change the maths.
Okay. So it
But
doesn't
that,
change the maths.
and I
It
can,
doesn't
if I
change the
can,
maths.
if I can
Do you
jump,
think only crossing the lines going to change the maths?
The math
Tanya,
is going to be changed with a softening of the tone and a reaching across the aisles. That's the only way the math can
I
be
take in
changed.
notes of that. Huh?
Tanya, and Kenny, interesting point. Again, on the NJAM program last night, the head
Mm-hmm.
of NJAM, I guess he recognizes the situation, and he even proposed that coming out the next campaign will be where he encourages the Dominican opposition to start to laugh, to at least stop projecting so much anger and bitterness. He said he's going to launch a Laugh Dominica Laugh campaign, which I find interesting. I think that's innovative. I've never heard that. I'd like to see it play out. I hope it's not a grin with the same anger that is there. But I think the people recognize this. And there is a sense, I think, of just bitterness that has been, that's wrapped around the opposition. In fairness, you can say, well, Sam, you considered about the government too, but in reality, the government has been in control. They've been winning the elections, you see. So the opposition want to get to where the government is. And if you want to get to where the other guy is, you're going to have to do the reaching across the aisle and so on. And then the talk about electoral reform, Kenny alluded to it. Kenny and I were very instrumental in trying to get a meaningful, comprehensive electoral reform before the last election. Kenny, I don't know, we're not going to go into the details, but we did a lot of work, and I'm on record, Kenny's on record as being very pro electoral reform. Not that I think that it would change the outcome at all, but
Nope.
I think as a
Mm.
matter
So it
of
wouldn't hurt if we tried then. It wouldn't hurt.
it
I
would
just
be,
say,
I
let's get
think
it
it would be
happening.
helpful, and can tell you that's why I say I fully support electoral reform uh, as part of the ongoing process of progression. We need
Mm.
to reform our systems from time to time. But I think some people in the opposition believe that they really believe that that 33% or that 30 something percent doesn't exist, that they command the majority. And the only reason they haven't formed the government is because they've been cheated, just like Donald Trump, said that he's been cheated, notwithstanding the overwhelming physical evidence that that didn't happen. And so there is that two narratives. And even with electoral reform now, they're stretching before it was cleansing the voter list. And so now they're talking about campaign finance reform. And I'm flat out hearing people say that one side shouldn't have more money than the other. Well, the reason the opposition doesn't have the financial resources is because people out there, even people who may be interested in a change in some way, don't have confidence in them. And you're not going to put your hard-earned money as a business person or anyone else in a political party that you know is going to the gallows. And so that is the problem. So until and unless you can begin to give people the confidence that in fact they will be better off electing you, you're going to be at a tremendous disadvantage as an opposition. And there's no amount of electoral reform that's going to change that math.
Let me read this one. Clarence, Kenny, Sam, how do you all feel about the fact that Sir Dennis was supposed to have completed a job in June of 2020, which is supposed to assist us with improving and securing our electoral process, and we have no idea to date where this stands? Kenny, is any electoral reform adequate for you, or do you have a standard which you require? Meaningful.
Well, the electoral reform process that was described by Sir Dennis is something I would support. I've gone on record and saying that I don't understand why we don't have, for example, ID cards. Now, don't crucify me for this. I think that is a sign of the lack of bipartisanship, because the last time when we had electoral reform on the way, the difference between the opposition and the government was pretty much nonsense, because the government was saying we want to have a multi-purpose ID card, and the opposition was saying we want a single issue voter ID card. That's nonsense. You can't tell me that I have a Dominica driver's license, I have a social security card. You want me to add a single issue card rather than having one card that would have all of these encoded in them? That's ridiculous. And we couldn't even agree on that. So that shows you the political climate we're in. In terms of the full re-registration of the voting lists, cleaning of the voting list, all of those things that have been described by Sir Dennis as under the scope of his engagement, I support that. I don't know the reason for the delay. I'm not one to question Sir Dennis as someone who's as eminent, probably the most eminent jurist that has come from this region. But I know it will happen. And I think that the biggest issue for us is that we cannot have any agreement on anything by the political parties. And that's a huge issue, because for electoral reform, at least we could have had the voters ID card. Because to me, that was the most basic thing that you could have. But to say that, you know what, you don't want a multiple purpose ID card because it is some kind of trick, I mean, that's nonsense. Okay. That's patent nonsense.
Let's take another quick break, guys. We'll be right back. Keep it locked.
Right here, right now, I put the offer out. I don't want to chase you down. I know you see it. You run with me, and I can cut you free out of the treachery of walls you keep in. So trade that typical for something colorful. And if it's crazy, live a little crazy. You can play it sensible, a king of conventional, or you can risk it all and see. Don't you wanna get away from the strain? Oh, Apache gotta play, cause I got what you need. So come with me and take the ride. It'll take you to the other side, cause you can do like you do, or you can do like me. Stay in the cage, or you finally take the key. Oh, damn, suddenly you're free to fly. It'll take you to the other side.
Okay, my friend, you wanna cut me in? Well, I hate to tell you, but it just won't happen. So thanks, but no, I think I'm good to go, cause I quite enjoy the life you say I'm trapped in.
Welcome back, people. Q95, the other side. We're here. We were discussing many topics, a whole range of things, current events as usual. We ended off that session speaking about electoral reform. Let's take a call now. I didn't give people a chance to call in. You're live on the other side.
Yes, good evening, Miss Tanya.
Good evening.
Miss Tanya, this is the caller that called a couple of weeks ago and told you that his eyes is upon you, because I realize you've been asking relevant questions. But I called to say something. You asked a question a while ago to the caller that spoke about when the opposition leader was going to respond to the budget. You asked what would the opposition leader do about it?
I asked if they are doing anything about it.
Let me answer the question. He cannot do nothing. You know why? Because our Prime Minister already said no law, no constitution can stop him. Watch that quickly. I'm going to do that as quick as possible. The CCJ, I've been asking the Prime Minister question 10 of them. Would he attend courts? And the CCJ said yes, there's a case. This case go to the Tanya,
Yes, I'm there.
Dominica is in a lot of trouble. These two passport sellers, they're not seeing the problem that we are going to face, so they're just saying things. But the same way, Tanya, the Speaker of the House treating the people in Dominica, that is the same thing the one in Tortola was into the opposition. No, he resigned, and the government in Tortola now is combined with the opposition and the sitting government.
Okay.
One day, these things will come to an end. Trust me.
Okay, thank you, caller. You see, I just feel like nobody's really getting sometimes the questions I ask. All I want to know, if that happens where I'm in the, what's that, cabinet? I'm parliament, sorry. I'm there and I have to make my speech or whatever, and I am being kept from doing that. What is he doing? He must be able to do something to prevent that.
I think, to be fair, the leader of the opposition simply has to give his presentation, and the quality of the presentation will inevitably shine through. That is what shines
No, but they're
through.
saying that he's being prevented from doing that?
No. The statement is that, well, there was a statement about him in one of the presentations having issues with making his presentation because of an order that was passed. I can't remember the whole thing. But the other question was with regards to the Prime Minister not being present when the opposition leader made his presentation. That was the question. And you asked, well, what is he doing about it? And I was saying there's nothing he can really do other than to give his presentation. And the better the presentation, it will demand the presence of the Prime Minister. That's really how it works. You know, I mean, at the end of the day,
that sounds real weird, huh? Let me tell you.
It sounds real weird, but at
the
end of the day, the conflict that it's generated on the radio, that's on the streets, is also there in the parliament. That's what we have. That's the issue.
I am the opposition leader. I have to give a presentation. I just feel at the end of the day, I have to give my presentation. You need to listen. And that's that. That's how I see it. It depends on the quality of my presentation.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't depend on the quality. I'm saying that the better the presentations get, it demands, over time, it will demand the presence of the Prime Minister. That's all. Because sometimes you have things being said, accusations being made, that the Prime Minister will simply not want to be there to listen to. That's how it works. But I'm not saying this is me.
I don't think that's right.
Making that commentary. I'm just telling you this is what has been happening.
Okay.
This happened with the whole allegations about the missing billions. There's a number of different things that have happened. But the people demand better. You know, people have to demand better from the parliamentarians. You know.
Exactly. Let's take this one. Caller, you're live on the other side. Hello. Caller, are you there? Okay. Caller, you're live on the other side.
Hi, Tanya. I don't normally call a program twice, but I have to call back. Tanya, Kenny and Sam Raphael are two liars. Let me explain something to you. A few years ago, Tony Astafan made it quite clear to Roosevelt Kerry that the Electoral Commission is trying to implement voters' ID card and try to clean the voters list. Tony Astafan made it quite clear to Roosevelt Kerry, if you allow those guys to do that, that will stop your winning legacy. Son, you're a damn liar.
Okay, caller, thank you. Caller, you're live on the other side.
Yes, Tanya, I want to talk some mathematics quickly, because Kenny and Mr. Christian wants to talk maths. Tanya, for you to calculate correct mathematics with respect to the voters and the poll in Dominica, Tanya, the list must be accurate. Tanya, we have a bloated voters list. We have a list that it has more people on the list than the population of Dominica. And that is the list that was used to contest the last general election. In light of the fact that, Tanya, in a timely manner, the opposition raised over 1,000 objections to that list. And it was done in a timely manner. And the Chief Electoral Officer and the Electoral Commission ignored the objections, and they continued the bloated voters list. Tanya, Sam can tell you about the instruction from Tony Astafan to prevent the Electoral Commission from cleaning the voters list, so much so they dismissed Richard Charles, who was serving on the commission, and they replaced him with Alec Lawrence to ensure that they have the same bloated voters list so that they can bring in all the illegal voters. They can vote on all the dead people names who are on the list and so on. That is the reality in Dominica, Tanya. And in fact, to top it up, Tanya, you have a situation where all the elections from since 2009, they are challenged in court. And because they have hijacked the judicial system too, we are not hearing those election petitions in a timely manner. They have the court working for them too. Or even when CCJ instruct them to try the election matters, they go against the CCJ's ruling and they crossing the cases on their own, Tanya. That is the reality in Dominica. Don't let them fool you, my dear. Please, I beg you.
Thank you, caller.
Can I respond a
Sure,
little
sure.
with
This is good. Go ahead.
I'll respond again. Again, this is the trumped up narrative that the voters have been tired of, and they didn't vote the opposition in 14. They didn't vote them in 2019 with the same trumped up allegations. The voters list represents people that have been registered to vote. Some persons live outside of Dominica and are still legally eligible to vote. So the fact that you don't live on the island doesn't mean automatically your name will come off the list. But I think what is important is that every election we've had, and the last election, we've had 3 different internationally recognized observers that are in no way linked with the government of Dominica, that are highly reputable. They are the Commonwealth. They are, who else can you came in? The OES, is that correct? And is it CARICOM observers? They were all here. They observed the system. The same system that enabled the past election is the same election system that enabled the 2005 election victory for the opposition, you see? And where you have persons in every polling station, each and every one, that recognize the persons on the list, that come in, and when I walk in there, I see 2 people, one supporting the government and one supporting the opposition, sit looking at my name on the list. Yes, you're Sam Raphael. Okay, and they check it off. If it's not you, then they can, both persons will challenge that. So of course people, the gentleman spoke about the court cases. Anybody can file a court case. So the fact that there are outstanding court cases or court cases being filed doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. How many court cases have the opposition won? That is what he should speak about, you see. And so they now bring the whole judiciary into disrepute and so on. This isn't getting us anywhere. And I think this is the back and
Sam, I
forth.
think that's what he was saying. He's saying that you ask the question, how many cases did the opposition win? And he's saying, well, the court itself as well has just been, jaded. Meaning,
Well,
that's
I'm sorry, but that's a sad excuse, because everyone that goes to court and lose think that the court, acted unjustly towards them. And this is the case. I think really,
But is it true that Mr. Asifan made that comment?
not in
About
the manner in which he's suggesting.
not
Absolutely
in the
not.
manner.
And again, as Kenny was suggesting, the government, they were going into parliament that day, and the opposition created such mayhem that the government decided to withdraw the bill to effect the voter ID card and effect meaningful reform in the electoral system. And now we're asking for some of those same things. Why? Because the international observers suggested that we enact those same reforms. So it's kind of, we are, tripping ourselves up on this thing. Kenny and I think many people on the government side support meaningful electoral reform. Let's just see what we can agree on that, get that going, and the rest we don't agree on. Let's see how we can find solutions for this. But no one is going to get exactly 100% what we want. That's why they asked Sir Dennis Byron, okay, he's taking a little longer than we all had anticipated. Who knows what he's run into? We've had COVID and so on and so forth. Let the man do his work, and instead of always being so negative about everything, Kenny, go ahead.
I want to make a mathematical intervention. Okay, so it is fact that the voters list is bloated. Okay, there's a process for removing names of the list. It has not been engaged properly, in my opinion.
Somebody was making a comment about that.
And one of the things that will happen as part of the electoral reform process is to clean the bloated list. However, the numbers of voters in Dominica have not substantially changed over the years proportional to the registered voters. I want people to understand that. Even if you have 70,000 people on the list, it's still roughly 34,000 people odd who are voting. So it's the same people.
So
Okay, now the substantial issue that divides both political parties on electoral reform is quite frankly overseas voters. That has been the major dispute where people have said that if you're overseas, you should not be interfering in the electoral process. But the law dictates that if you're a registered voter, if you live in Timbuktu, you can come back and vote in the elections. The point about all of this, people, is that if every time you lose, you claim the other person is cheating and you continue to lose, then you have a problem. And what is happening now, what we have to have happen now, the electoral reform process, I want people to understand this. It does not change the math. It will not change the math. So that means that if you have hearts and minds work to do, which is what I've been talking about, you have to do it. You can't say, well, if I'm a minority party going up against a party which has a majority from the day one that they came into government, it's not going to automatically, electoral reform isn't going to clean the list and somehow clean the people who vote for the Labour Party. And I think people need to understand that, because it's a lazy way of interpreting the need for you to be able to have real discussions with people who may want to hear your point of view, but just don't like the way you're talking.
let's take a call. Caller, you're live on the other side.
Yes, good evening,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Miss Tanya, that's your name, and Mr. Green. I've never crossed paths with you, and I have crossed paths with Mr.
Raphael.
Raphael, because I really loved Jungle Bay in Delhi, and what he was doing, and it was really great. It really turned out to be what I envisaged to have been after working there with Public Works. I came there 12 years later. It was great. But Mr. Raphael, you have not sat in a polling booth at all, ever, to represent anybody. I have. And Mr. Raphael, I would like to say to you and Mr. Green that you all are really filibustering on that program there. Now, Mr. Raphael and Mr. Green, you talk about people over Mr. Green. You talk about people voting overseas as long as you are registered. Mr. Green, please read this thing properly. It says if you are overseas for more than 5 years, you cannot come and vote unless you make yourself registered Dominican at least for 3 months or so. But we are bringing in people there who have been overseas for 3 years.
Caller, we're barely hearing you. Stay close to your phone.
Pardon?
Stay close to your phone. We're barely hearing you.
Okay, sorry about that. You hearing better now?
Yes.
The Labour Party are bringing in people who have been overseas for 9 years to come and vote this afternoon. They come in this morning, vote this afternoon, come in yesterday afternoon, come and vote, and tomorrow they're gone.
Okay.
But the Constitution speaks against that, Mr. Green. Do you know that?
Okay.
Do you not believe what the Constitution says, that you have to be registered, you have to be in Dominica, and so that you can vote? You do not talk about that at all. You are jumping over that. You must be in Dominica.
Caller, let me just
Thank
have an
you, caller.
interaction. Let me have an interaction there. All people who come to vote have to have been registered under the laws of Dominica. So let's understand this. Those people that you're disputing have been away for longer than 5 years, have been legitimately registered in Dominica. Now, there are two things that can happen. In the electoral reform process, when they clean the voters list, they will most likely ask, which is what I've been hearing everyone is talking about, ask for complete re-registration. If that's the case, then everyone, those people locally, those people who may live abroad and who want to remain part of the political process will have to come home to be part of a legitimate registration process. But as they're on the list right now, they have been legally registered under the laws of Dominica. And that caller can't dispute that. What he's saying is that he believes that there are people who do not visit Dominica within the laws of Dominica who come home to vote at the prescribed time whenever there's an election. But you still have to prove that they've not been resident in Dominica. And even then, there's precedent set to say that you cannot stop them from voting. So, caller, you have to, in the whole political process, you have to decide whether it's worth it for you or the political party that you support to legally try to disenfranchise people. In other words, stop them from voting on the basis that you think that they're breaking the law. That's all it
You
is. You
know,
can't
Kenny,
ask
you
me to
Tanya,
said,
do
I'd like to clarify because he was very specific
go
to
ahead. I know
me
you will.
also. And,
Go
and
ahead.
and again, it may be a minor point, but he's incorrect. I was a candidate in 2009. I had to go through the entire process. I had my people monitor every polling station. And so what I speak about is not from what someone told me, it's from direct experience as a candidate. And so I'd like to clarify that for the gentleman.
Okay. Um, boy. Kenny, I think you said what people are so concerned about is that people are coming in, from different countries to vote. I think somebody made it clear on the live. It's more like they see it as the DLP is paying for people to come in to vote. I think that's the part.
Sam referred to that in a previous. No. Sam referred to this in a previous example. He was talking about his engagement with the United States, right? Sam, with
Correct.
the embassy. When Sam himself, as a
I
politician, made
was
a
under the
complaint.
impression, like the gentleman, like the folks.
Yes, he made a complaint. He went to the Americans and he said, "Look, this is what's happening. It's unfair." And the guy said, "How? How is it
Right,
unfair?"
right.
Look, the whole issue of treating and bribery and assisting people to come home. There's nothing different from someone being assisted by the Labour Party. And for people listening to it, they consider that unfair. Fine. There's nothing different from the Democrats trucking someone from Texas to come and vote in New York, or from San Francisco to vote in South Dakota, and the Labour Party getting assisting someone to come home from England to come home to Dominica. The key is, are they bribing people to vote against what their prescribed vote would normally be? In other words, Tanya is a UWP supporter in London. She wants to come home to vote. And I say, Tanya, I'm going to give you $1,000 and you have to vote for Labour. That is wrong. That is a crime.
Do you think that's happening?
No, of course not. Why would you vote pay someone to you don't even know they're going to vote for you? That's the height of stupidity. But you see the thing about this entire process, again, it's going to come down to the maths. Forget about everything else. People are coming home to vote of their own free will. They're not being forced to. They're making that decision on the basis that they want to. And if they are compelled to not do so because either they don't want to or they feel it's not part of their political purpose, then they won't.
Okay, let's take this one. Call you live on the other side.
Yes, hi. Can I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I've been living in the U.S. for 37 years. Do you think I need to come to Dominica to vote, even I'm registered?
For me, you're asking
Huh?
me. You're asking me, right, caller? Me,
Yes.
or you're asking? Okay.
I am living in the U.S. for 37 years. So you think I should be coming to Dominica to vote?
Well, this is okay. Thank you, caller. We'll answer your question. For me, let me tell you all what I really think about that. I feel like if you have not been coming home for a while and you're still on the list, your name should be taken off the list. I believe if you have decided, because I believe you are still Dominican, you can be following what's going on, you still love your country, you want to see your country grow, you may have relatives here, so you have concern about your country. And so I believe if it is that you decide, after the 37 years you want to come home and vote, I feel like you should be able to, but you should follow the rules. You should follow the policy. And that's just my take on it.
Well, Tanya, that's a good point. But the point of the electoral reform process is supposedly part of it is to have a re-registration process where that person who's overseas for 37 years and has never visited will be removed of it.
Yes, you should be removed.
But the math doesn't change. If I don't want to vote for you, it
Kenny,
doesn't
they-
matter if
Kenny,
you go
they
from
get
10
that,
to
you
8.
know.
No, I want to keep on repeating it because the idea that you know, I made I made this before. I'll give you an example. When we were smaller in Lindo Park, the person knows himself. Every time he was losing a game in basketball,
You mentioned this last
he
show.
would break
The game.
glass bottle on the
Yes.
court.
And he'd mash
Well,
up
he
the
did it a
game.
couple times, not every time. Then mash up the game, and he was losing. Okay, this is not basketball, and this is not sakitape cricket. This is serious business. This is the governance of a country, and to say that somehow you can just machinate that people that don't like you will vote for you, that's not going to be so.
Like, Kenny, I feel like you're trying to shove it down people's throat.
No, I'm
too. I
not
mean,
shoving
there-
it down.
there-
It's
I
just
think it's
I
quite
came
clear your
very
stance.
chill. I came very chill on this show. It's just that, you know, you don't blame your customers for your failings. Sam alluded to that. This idea, you know, you call people stupid, wicked, corrupt, etc. Everything, but look inward and say, am I doing the right things to make myself palatable to these very same people? Okay, am I preparing the right food in my restaurant?
And
Am
that
I
is,
doing the right
and that
things?
might be your take on why the opposition may not have remain relevant. But for some people, they believe that electoral reform is a big part.
Electoral reform won't change
And
a
so
thing.
we agree to disagree. But that's what you think?
I don't think it will
and,
change anything.
And they think electoral reform done in the right way will play a big role. And that's that. We can't fight no more, right? Sam, you still
But we
there?
agree, but there's a point of agreement. The agreement that we've made is that electoral reform is needed, if only for the comfort for us to proceed as a nation together to say, you know what? This is the electoral process, and this is how we decided to move forward, and this is it. But I can tell you this, something else will come up. There'll always be something.
What about campaign financing? You think that should be regulated? I only have 5 minutes, but I just want to hear all your talk on that. Like a quick point. What do you think about that?
But that was not part of the original electoral reform remit, I think, of Sir Dennis Byron. So I don't know where campaign finance comes
It's just
in.
something outside of that. Can you speak to that? The campaign financing?
Let's Sam speak to that. Sam,
I'll
the big
speak to
shot.
that a little. I'll speak to that a little, Tanya. But even in terms of the people traveling to come in to vote, in other countries they have absentee ballots. So, like the woman said, if she had lived in the Dominica for 37 years and she was an American citizen from Texas, she would still be able to participate in every election because there is absentee voting. So, you know, we don't have that that system set up. Now you physically have to come down to vote. Is it just the people that can afford to take that plane and fly down that should be able to participate? What if you're poor and you're really committed to the country and you really want to come down? Should you not be able to accept assistance from whomever just to facilitate your democratic right to vote? And I think voting should not just be for those who can afford. Voting should be for everyone that's registered as much as possible. I mean, there's some realities there, but that's as much as possible, right? The second question you're asking is in terms of campaign finance reform. This is a very challenging issue, and people like to just come up with these buzzwords, but it's very complicated. You have countries like the United States where you've had strict campaign finance laws, okay, that says that at one point there's a limit you can contribute to the campaign and so on. Right now, the whole thing is upside down because there are ways to get around that, and you'll never get a perfect scenario. Because even in the United States, where you have your campaign can only accept X amount per person, you can still create a political action committee of friends of Kenny Green or whatever, and you can give any amount of money to that, and they can, as long as they don't act in tandem with the official campaign. So right now, the idea that somehow you're going to just have campaign finance reform and that's going to solve your problem is not the case. The problem is the opposition is unable in their estimation, to raise funds to wage a campaign in the manner in which they like. And the
To be
reason is
competitive.
that their message is not resonating with people who's willing to contribute, and no amount of campaign finance reform is going to
Yeah,
change
it's
that.
not
The
going to
key is
work out.
go back and do your work and try to attract
I will not
people
vote
and try.
today.
Sam, I hear you. I hear you. I was going
I
to
mean,
take another call, you know.
look. I mean, let's get it.
So, but Kenny says
No more.
no more calls tonight.
No more calls tonight. We done. You know, just to end on this note,
Mm-hmm.
this blame culture that we're developing is a horrible thing.
Yes.
And this idea that everything that goes wrong with you is somebody else's fault, you know, rather than taking ownership of your own feelings, it transcends everything. It transcends our personal development, it transcends our political development.
Right. And I want you to take note of those words that you just said.
Mhm.
Because sometimes when you speak, it can come across as though the opposition is doing everything wrong. And I believe both parts, the both parties' sides, yeah, they tango in. And that is why
Of course,
we are
both
not
sides.
moving forward where we need to go.
Of course, both sides are doing something
Okay,
wrong.
but
But
then let us
if
speak to it like
no,
that.
but
Why do we have to come and sit down and act like
Sam referred to something earlier. All right. If two guys are running and one guy is running at pace ahead and one is behind, and both of them have a hitch in their running style, who's one you going to want to work on more?
Okay, I hear you.
Okay.
All right, it's 7:29, people. One more minute, and I want to thank you guys for joining us this evening on a night where we were just going with the flow. I think it was very educational for me. That was a shoop side. I know it was a little tiring for Sam and Kenny too. Those calls, those calls. Let's try to keep it civil as we go on through the week. You know what, people? Yeah, cut down on the cursing.
Brian, see, I'm doing
Don't be so
fuzzy math.
emotional. Anyways, from Sam, Kenya, and myself, you guys have a good evening and keep it locked right here on the big station Q95. We have what's coming up next? Sorry? Oh, kudos to our heroes. Oh, sounds like something good, guys. So keep it locked right here.
Right here